Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome as you come in. I'm Roy Potter, and today is the 20th of December, 2019. Little bleary-eyed. I was up quite late last night. We did the nightcap, of course, talking about weight loss and things like that. Had a lot of fun. We enjoyed, I think, the time last night. I did put it up. It is up on YouTube, and it's also I put it out on Twitter. So in case you're interested in any of that, you can go back and watch it. I had to review it after it was done, which is why I was up a little later, plus visiting and things like that. But at any rate, here we are today on the 20th. We're one day away from the winter solstice. That's tomorrow. So the longest day of the year is well, it's either today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And then the sun starts moving back north and the days start getting shorter again. In ancient times, these were all significant. A lot of people have some bad things to say about what they'd refer to as pagans for their observance of these times and seasons. But even in the New Testament, it talks about watching for the times and seasons. And in the Old Testament, it talks about the planting time and the harvest and all that. And so all of these things are just basically agricultural time clocks. And they're not really evil or bad in and of themselves. So, plus they mark other things as well. And we won't get into that, but I just thought I'd bring that up. The chat is on, I do believe. And feel free to go ahead and make your comments as you like. Good morning again as you come in. I'm hoping that the sound is okay as usual. And if you could give me a heads up on that, I will certainly appreciate it. But I believe it should be just about right. I shouldn't be over-modulating, but it should be loud enough where you can hear it. So let's hope that the connection stays good. The storm is here. We are. Thank you, 5x5. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Still have fog, but of course the snow also interferes because this is a satellite transmission, or not a satellite, dish transmission. So that's always a little bit of a detail. Okay, well, let's get into this. The reason why I wanted to come on this morning, some things have happened. First and foremost, I've had some contact with people on Twitter and in other ways who are very much into giving out information, doing a great deal of research, not being blusterous about it, boisterous, but just do really, really excellent work. And I'm going to say this here, and I hope I'm not upsetting them or embarrassing anyone, but they're getting frustrated. And it's not even so much because they're not popular like some of the MAGA people are. And when I say MAGA, I mean those that you could almost name, household names, especially on the web. It's not really that or even, although not being recognized for their work hurts. I mean, when people think of Van Gogh in his age, I don't think he sold one painting, but now he's extolled as being a great artist. And that happens so often to the great minds of contemporaries that they're not noticed. Those who have I don't know what it is, more venues, more opportunities, whatever, and all that's part of the capitalistic idea of who does it best. But sometimes who does it best isn't always the one that we hear from. And especially when you see some of the things that are happening in the country and the explanations that you're getting from those who are so often accepted. And I'm not talking just about the mainstream media. This is in the alternative media as well. And I'm not going to name names, but when you see their explanations accepted and your professional in-depth research comes up with something much more important, and yet it's ignored, it's troubling to you. And I'm sure most of you would understand what I'm talking about. and there's really nothing I can do, of course, to remedy that. I have definitely brought up the names of some of these wonderful people in the past, and I will do so again today, who put out some really great work, extraordinary actually, and who aren't getting the press, so to speak, of those with far less acumen. But that's kind of the nature of the society we're in. And first of all, I want to just tell those people that I do appreciate what you do. And I know that you often go without recognition. That doesn't mean that what you have to say or that your research and posting of that research is without merit, because it most definitely is. I doubt that Jesus was as well known in his time as most Christians today imagine that he was. Frankly, historically, he's not even mentioned. Just briefly, and those are questionable mentions. So while I can understand the agony of doing all this work and not feeling like you're making a difference, in history you will. Okay? So let me just send that out there. And I'm not giving you a pep talk because I understand all this. This is the exact same type of pep talk I have received from others. As I've told you about, I have a Republican insider in California. He is always on me, for a lot of different reasons. But one is either when I get too out of sync with what the reality is, or at times when I feel like just hanging it all up. He is usually there to say, okay, Roy, pull back, let's take a look at this. No, you are making a difference, and even if you weren't making a huge difference, your own religion, your own spiritual position in things tells you that if you save one soul, if you inform one person, one individual, that is a success. And so I have to admit that that's true. So at any rate, to all of those out there who are doing so much wonderful work and you feel like you're kind of in the background, understand that I certainly, I'm with you. Again, we seem to be having a few little problems with the transmission. I think you probably noticed that blip right there. Who knows what it is? I have no idea. But at any rate, let's go ahead and get into the subject matter. I got some very good news last night, something that I didn't anticipate actually coming through. I can't really tell you what it is, so why bring it up, Roy? Well, I might have a pretty significant announcement on a guest in the next few days. Of course, I've said that before, but this one I think will actually happen, and it's a bombshell. You hear that so often in the media. But this really is. And it's not for me. I want you to understand it's for you. It's so that you can see the inside information about what's happening and where the probabilities and possibilities are that we are going. So it's not a matter of pride for me. It's a matter of we need this information. So hopefully I'll be able to make the formal announcement on the day and time and the guest as soon as I confirm and make sure that everything is set. Okay, so just to kind of give you a little tease about that. Okay, let's get into the important stuff. Trump. Anyone who's followed me knows that I do not hold Trump's personal life indiscretions, what will be considered indiscretions, against him. I don't consider it that he necessarily be a saint. As a matter of fact, if he were, I would worry to some extent. My understanding of biblical law, scripture, those types of things, as most of you know, and you're saying, well, why are you going here, Roy? Well, you'll see in a minute, because it's the title of this, right? Inaccurate and false accusations by Christians against Trump. And this is deeper than that, but that's the title I decided to go with. Most of the accusations that are made against men for their conduct with women is not scripturally accurate, and I know this will cause a firestorm, but it's just not true. It's the way to control people. One of the three things that you want to control people is their sexual expressions, their sexual attitudes, their sexual conduct. And yes, there are bad things, there are immoral things, but by and large, as I look at Trump's background, I'm sorry, he has not violated the biblical laws. He has not. And that's going to cause a lot of grief for a lot of people, and you might want to leave over that. I could probably name a few now, but please don't. So many guys I'm talking about said so many great things last night, okay? So just hear me out here, okay? Don't get upset and go running away. I mean, you can if you want, but I think what you need to hear here is important. These same types of accusations were leveled against Jesus Christ himself, both from the political establishment and from the church of his time. And anybody who's looked at this thing historically will know that, okay, and scripturally. As a matter of fact, when you hear me become critical of Trump, it's not for these types of things that the Christians would be upset about, or this spurious, this kind of ethereal immorality. No, when I'm critical of Trump, and I explained this to a colleague this morning, I'm not angry at Trump for those things. He's a man. He's been in the business world. He's been maligned, maliciously aligned, lied about, false accusations about, condemnations and all that, trying to impugn his personal moral character. When I say he doesn't have a moral foundation, I'm talking about in the political realm. Now, I realize that personal morality impacts how well you do other things. I do understand that. But again, I don't find Trump that far out of the realm of that morality. What I see is traditional, what was considered to be traditional Christianity, either totally attacking him or accepting him as almost a messianic figure. Where I get upset with Trump is his, really, and again I explained this to a colleague this morning, is his lack of robust knowledge of the Constitution. I consider that to be his biggest fallacy and where he's been the weakest. A lot of politicians don't think it's necessary, but I got to tell you, and this is, I didn't expect Trump to be this lackadaisical on the Constitution. He took an oath to support and defend something he knows nothing about. And that is my difficulty with Trump. So when I say he doesn't have a moral basis, he doesn't have, an internal moral compass, I am talking not about his personal moral life. I am talking about his understanding and execution and administration of constitutional principles. He is so bad there. It's a big disappointment, especially when on the Alex Jones show, he gave the impression that he understood these things, and Alex said, he knows more about the condition of our country than even I do. Alex talking about that, and that has become manifestly not true. So that is where I'm coming from. Now, with all of that background, I'm not calling him a messianic figure, but if you understand Hebrew scriptures, you'll understand that there are messianic types. So maybe I'm contradicting myself here. In that regard, I would consider him a messianic type, not at the level of Jesus Christ, no. Messiah means merely a king in waiting, an anointed prince in waiting to become king. That's really all it means. And David, for instance, King David at one point was a Mashiach, a Messiah, okay? So due to the nature of the early church and the Kabbalistic influences on the Christian church, which a lot of people don't understand. They want to hold this Kabbalah, as kind of this black magic stuff, which it could have been in some instances, and it was, but most of the time it was not. It's interesting how the Christians have morphed and accepted some of this messianic idea on the Kabbalistic level of mysticism, and you don't even realize it. In the early church, the Messiah, what they were looking for was a political leader, not even a spiritual leader. That's not what the concept was, not at all. Not saying that isn't necessary and that it's best to have both, right? To have both a priest and a king, okay? I'm not disagreeing with that. But that really wasn't the first century understanding of what this was all about. Now you'll say, well, the Jews were stupid. They didn't understand what they were getting. No, that's not true. If you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll understand that's not true at all. But anyway, why all of this? Because we are seeing Trump be falsely accused from every corner, from every crack and crevice. Not only in the government, not only in institutions, not only in other nations, principally China. I'm surprised how well Putin, and then they'll say, well, this is proof that he's in the bed with the Russians. Well, I guess by that definition, I'm in bed with the Russians, because I have more respect for the Russians than I do most Americans as far as where they are morally, if you want to go there, okay? China, that's a whole nother story. China is currently a communist nation. It's run by communist dictators, and they might throw me off YouTube for saying this, and again, I don't care, although I hope I get this interview in before they throw me off. Russia's not the enemy that they're made out to be, but they know that there are forces inside the United States and in the Western democracies, and some of them really are democracies, that are a danger to the Russian Federation. And I will admit that. They have to defend themselves against these lunatics in the Pentagon and in the CFR and in the Atlantic Council, etc. Absolutely. We have warmongers, neocon Trotskyites who want to take Russia out when Russia is really the only reason why they even have a defense. I mean, of course they'd have a military, but their defensive maneuvers are because of our aggressions, not vice versa. So at any rate, and I could call into, again, some things that were written in the 1800s. I really don't want to mention them here because it'll open up a whole nother can of worms if I get too detailed. But all of this that you're seeing right now was talked about in the 1800s, and it was part of the plan to take down personal liberty and the free nations, okay? And it's coming right along, and Russia is made to look like the bad guy when it really isn't. The real problem is the Chinese, as most of us who are involved in this know. So there's this attack on Trump's person himself, on his supposed immorality and a lot of other things, and it's been primarily coming from the war in the government, which we're also going to talk about here in a few minutes. The war between the deep state and us, the people. And they've accused him of all sorts of things. You've seen it, sexual indiscretions, these things with making deals for his presidency, which all of these things. And I'm here to tell you that from the evidence that I've seen, we're going to cover some of it this morning, all of those accusations are based on falsehoods, lies, deceptions. In fact, Trump is despised and rejected of men. He is. And I stand by him in principle. And what do I mean by that? I don't worship him in a cult of personality like the people at the rallies do. Not saying that they're bad people. But I hold Trump in a high regard. I honor his position, and I honor him insofar as he faithfully follows the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That is my issue with him. Not all these other things that they're trying to get the silly people out there upset at him because he talked about, and I'm just going to say it, pussies or whatever, in supposedly a private conversation, or because he's had many women in his life. The issue is, in those regards, what the wives knew and what the circumstances were. And I'm not going to get into the details, but as far as I can tell from the depth that I can see into what he's done, I do not hold him in any disregard for his the things he's done in his personal life. If there's anything in his personal life I'm concerned about, it's his stiffing the construction people in places like Las Vegas, where he didn't pay them based on some little minor, disagreements about contracts and things like that. That I find fault with him for. Okay, that I do, because that's a form of theft, dishonesty in that regard. But being in business, you kind of understand that type of thing. I'm not saying it's right, but there have been supposed Christian ministers who have done far worse. So, bottom line, what I'm saying is that Trump has been despised and rejected. He is a disruptor in the status quo of the establishment. They don't like him because of that. I think it's manifestly so. Do I think that he is placating us? I concern myself with that at times. Obviously, you know that. I don't know why he has refused to take more action. And we'll talk about that some more today, too, if I remember. But the real problem is the false accusations, and they are legion. This man has been maligned and lied about more than anyone else in the present age that I could think of. Okay? So, in that regard, in the description box, there are a couple of links that I've put here because I'm going to talk about these stories, and I want to make sure that I give them the due, that I admit that I get this information from them because they're the ones that put this out. I'm not a real fan of Mediaite. I think that's how you say it, and that's the first link in the box. And here we go with the Christians. This is a story in Mediaite that actually came from Christianity Today, and the editor made an op-ed of Christianity Today calling for the removal of President Trump. I predicted that this would eventually start to occur, and it's because the churches, as Alex Jones has pointed out, the churches are not, by and large, and this is going to offend a lot of people, but it's just the case. It was the case in Christ's day, and it's certainly the case today. The churches are actually a tool of control of the state. Sorry, that's just the way it is. The real kingdom of heaven is within you. Okay, and so I'm not gonna go there. I'm just gonna show you the evidence, and this is the first one here. In this article, this is in Mediaite. The title of the article is "Morally Lost and Confused. Evangelical Magazine Calls for Trump's Removal from Office in Blistering Op-Ed." This is a story written by Aidan McLaughlin yesterday. And I'm just going to read some of this. I don't mean to plagiarize it, but I think you need to go and read the whole article because this is going to surprise you. The editor of Christianity, this is quoting the article out of Mediaite. The editor of Christianity Today, a prominent evangelical magazine founded by Billy Graham. I imagine that Billy Graham's son, Franklin Graham, is probably not in this category and probably never will be. But this is still showing you what's happening in the Christian world and how the state is using the church, various churches, okay, whatever, to now influence the people to turn against Trump. So, starting again, the editor of Christianity Today, prominent evangelical magazine founded by Billy Graham, called for President Donald Trump to be removed from office in an editorial published Thursday. But the facts in this instance are unambiguous, wrote Mark Galil, the magazine's editor-in-chief, in a piece titled "Trump Should Be Removed from Office." The President of the United States attempted, then he starts accusing him, this editor, of all the things that they've accused him of in the impeachment, which are all wrong. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, too. The entire impeachment process is illegal, that they've done, the way they've done it, the way they've conducted it, the charges that are made, all of these things. If they're not unconstitutional, they are immoral. And some people would argue that the process was unconstitutional as well, and we're going to get into that. The reason many are not shocked about this is that this president has dumbed down the idea of morality in his administration. No, he hasn't. The excuses they use, he has hired and fired a number of people who are now convicted criminals. What, on process crimes? He himself has admitted to immoral actions in business and with his relationship with women. Sorry, that was probably a little too loud. See what I'm saying? This is nonsense, but this is where it's going. And I've warned about this for 3 years. He's being attacked from the deep state, from different factions in government, and now from those that should know better, because they really don't know better. They're really wolves in sheep's clothing. They're attacking him not for his administrations and abilities with the Constitution. They're attacking him on grounds that they have no right to do so. False accusations. Oh, he's a wine bibber. Do you remember them accusing Jesus of that? That he's a wine bibber? They said, and Jesus said, John the Baptist came neither eating nor drinking, and you found fault with him, and then I come eating and drinking, and you call me a wine bibber. These people will find anything. They will accuse you of anything. They are the false accusers. This proves that these people are satanic, which is the real meaning of shaitan. It means the false accuser of the brethren. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I've warned that this was going to happen, that they were going to turn on him because they're state propaganda institutions. So I will please go to the link there. I'm not going to plagiarize their article any more than that. Please go to Mediaite, the link there, and read that story. It will, if it doesn't anger you, you don't understand. Okay? You don't understand what these false accusations are really based upon, and that these accusations can be made against anyone. They are the false accuser of the brethren. And I'm not saying that all the evangelicals or Christians are jumping on this bandwagon. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we're seeing evidence that it's creeping in, and it's going to get worse. Okay, the next article I wanted to cover was the Zerhedge article, because it goes along again with the inaccurate and false accusations against Trump. We just talked, and I went ahead and put the Christians in here. I was going to put the government too and other things, but I think that's a given. But this is really about this entire impeachment process that's been absolutely ridiculous, and what they're trying to do. And it's going to get worse. I found, we've concerned ourselves. Alex Jones talked about it yesterday, that it looks like the Supreme Court is even going to get involved in this coup. It actually already has been involved, apparently, and that this impeachment or this trial in the Senate might be a setup. Now, I don't know about all that. We're wargaming this. Alex Jones is wargaming it. I'm wargaming it, and these people here are wargaming it. And I'm going to read some of this article from Zerhedge to show my point here. This could be really, really dangerous. As I've said for many years, actually, I first recognized it at the Boston bombing time, which most of you who have followed me all this time know, that was an act showing that there was a war in the government, and I explained that in some of my videos at the time. I'm not going to go back to it today, but it's obvious that there's this power struggle. Well, there always has been a power struggle between the three branches of government, pretty much primarily between the legislative and the executive, and the judicial is supposed to be the referee between them, not really even involving us. I mean, what the Supreme Court has evolved into is really actually probably beyond what it was really intended to be, even though they were supposed to solve all questions in law and equity and all that. But it was primarily between the executive and legislative. That's the referee, the judicial side. But whatever. The point is, to me, is that now we know that the left has been using the judiciary. They've infiltrated it. I don't even trust Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. I don't. I've seen what they've done. Clarence Thomas has been the strongest, as far as I'm concerned, on the conservative on the court. Certainly not John Roberts. He's an abomination, as far as I'm concerned. And it's John Roberts who is going to be sitting on this trial in the Senate, if in fact it happens. And you've probably all seen it in the news. Gator Ginsburg saying that, that if they can show that certain senators are biased, so they can remove them from the trial. That's all nonsense. The judiciary doesn't have that authority. All they can do is make sure that the proceedings aren't themselves. The proceedings themselves, not the individuals, but the proceedings themselves are followed. And that's actually up to the Senate, the majority leader, to decide, right, what those procedures are. But McConnell's not going to change these procedures that are time, immemorial, like Pelosi did. So at any rate, we see that the judiciary is now involved in this coup as well. A very good possibility. The military, I've warned about that. Of course, the bureaucracies, all of them have stood against Trump, which proves to me, could he be doing this, as I've definitely talked about this, that he has been He has been playing this out, that this is a drama to take us off guard so that they can institute the surveillance program fully by April of this next year. There are people that are saying that, and that's the reason why Barr and Durham aren't really going after everybody until that time, because that's when this whole thing is going to drop on the surveillance grid, the total panopticon. And that might be, or maybe the financial system change. I don't know. Okay, all I can tell you, I can see some of those things in the future, but this presently is a problem. And they keep us occupied in this probably to keep us from realizing these other horrible things that they're about ready to do. But that's why you have to prep, pray, and try to stay out of the way and keep your situational awareness on high, because really the only real help that we're going to have is our own kingdom of heaven within ourselves. That's really the only help we're going to have. Okay, let me read some of this from Zerhedge. It's apparently it was stated by Luongo. And I'm going to read this in a minute, authored by Tom Luongo via Gold, Goats and Guns blog. So this comes from a blog, but I think the fact that it's in Zerhedge and it goes along with what we're seeing, I think you need to go read it. And it's called Pelosi's Coup Attempt is Now Open Warfare. There Will Be Casualties. Quoting the article, the Democrats declared war this week, not on Donald Trump. What have we been saying? Donald Trump even said this about a month ago. He tweeted out, I finally realized that this coup against me is actually a coup against the American people and against the perfect law of liberty, against our liberties. That's really what it's about. And that's what it was always about. Trump just came and got in the way of the program, and so he became the centerpiece, the target. Okay, let me read that again. The Democrats declared war this week, not on Donald Trump, but on the United States and the Constitution. What started as a coup to overturn the 2016 election has now morphed into a civil war as Speaker Nancy Pelosi presided over the passage of a bill which creates a clear constitutional crisis. And that means we have, as I've been saying for years already, and that means we have multiple factions vying for control of our government, the definition of civil war. Then he goes down through and he talks about the two articles that were passed and how ridiculous they are. I won't get into the details of that. Please go read the article. But basically he's saying that these are trumped-up charges with no basis in law or equity. That's basically what he's saying. And he's absolutely right. So he gives some examples of why the president going after Biden is not the wrong thing. And this was the critical part of the article that I want to talk about. And those who are watching this fully understand it. Trump said he was going to put Clinton in jail and never seemed to go down that road. Remember that? I even have the shirt, Clinton for prison 2016, right? When I have though, that was one of the platforms. And if Trump manages it right, whether he institutes Article 2, Section 2, as I've said, or whether Bill Barr and John Durham really are serious and are going to do something. And Rich Higgins, the former member of the NSC that McMaster fired, says that he has inside information that yes, Durham is in that process. Well, if these bad things in the Congress and the Senate aren't curtailed, Durham and Barr's efforts are going to be for nothing. But at any rate, and that's why I say they can't wait. They've got to do something. But at any rate, so the idea with Pelosi and all these people is kind of like what the Federal Bureau of Investigation does. They throw so many charges on you that they're going to you get weighed down. Where they're trying to force you to do something that you shouldn't have to do. That's really unjust. So in this article, as a matter of fact, I think maybe what I should do is read that one portion of it because he explains it so well. Let me see if I can find exactly where it is. Yeah. He makes the point that it's apparent that the people in the House, let's just say the Democrat communists, who have these tentacles into all of the bureaucracies, especially the Department of Justice, Department of State, the FBI and the Department of Justice, all of these, the CIA, etc., IRS, etc. They have these tentacles out there, and they've been doing all of this corruption. They want to make it so that the President of the United States, as the chief law enforcement officer, will have precedent actions, even law, against him. It won't be law, really, but it's definitely precedent, that he cannot go after anybody in government for corruption. Do you see how that would work? That's the idea, which leads me to believe that Trump really is for real. But he's got to do something. He can't keep talking about it, right? So the point here is they're trying to make it so the president can't go after anybody in government, especially anybody who's counter to the deep state plans. That's the real purpose list. So let me just read just a little bit of this. Biden was put in charge of Ukraine by President Obama. He had full discretion on policy towards Ukraine and was caught on tape bragging about doing exactly what the impeachment article is accusing Trump of doing, shaking Ukraine down for favors in order to get $1 billion in aid. Since the prosecutor who Biden had fired was investigating corruption into son Hunter's involvement with Ukraine gas company Burisma, this admission is pretty damning, showing clear personal motive to use his office to stop investigation into his family. This abuse of power, this is subjecting, and this is the point I want to make, just what I said, but now these are his words. This is subjecting U.S. foreign policy to the whims of an elected official, squelching an investigation into his personal family, using the office for personal gain. So when viewed through this lens, the first impeachment article is a complete lie. Trump didn't do the things asserted. The transcript of the phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky proves that. And then he comes on down and he says, the implications of this impeachment article are, however, staggering. It says explicitly that the U.S. president cannot discharge his duties as a law enforcement official if the person of interest is someone of the opposite party or a potential electoral opponent. It says that probable cause is not a standard for investigation, only political considerations. That's a clear violation of Congress's role. Congress writes the law, the president executes them. If the Congress wants to assume law enforcement powers, it should work to amend the Constitution. Do you see what I'm saying? Go read the entire article. It's there for you in the description box, and I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. That's what I wanted to cover today. We are in an awful situation. This supposed action. Barr has done some great things in the last few days. I don't know if you're following what he's been saying. He's been saying that, in fact, Comey was part of the seventh. Well, the seventh floor of the FBI is, of course, the people that control the FBI. And Barr has admitted that this entire situation, this entire debacle of the Russian deal and all of that, all the things that we've been hearing about with Strzok and Page and Papadopoulos and all that, was formulated and run by Comey and his people on the seventh floor. That Barr has admitted now. Why won't they arrest the bastards and bitches? Why? Who the heck knows? They can't. They're trying to save the institutions, and as many people are calling for now, including Glenn Beck. And I know people say, "Oh, don't bring up Glenn Beck." Well, Glenn Beck is he doesn't like me. I can tell you that for a fact. He doesn't like me a bit. My background just doesn't mesh with his concepts of things, and so he's gonna let that stand in the way of some progress. But at any rate, you got to see this. Oh no, I hope I've got it. Where did it go? Somehow I think I put it in the wrong place. I did. That's funny. Yeah, I think I'm saving something, and apparently I accidentally erased it. But Glenn Beck was covering some of this information as well, and he said some things that I thought were pretty fantastic. Well, I lost it. That's one problem with these things. If your hand hits the wrong thing, it's gone. I don't want to take a whole lot of time of yours trying to locate it once I've made a mistake like that. I see Alex do that, Alex Jones. He'll want to cover a story, and somehow or another, the printed story, what he has, the report out there, gets lost in the paperwork shuffle or whatever. So I just did it on my phone. Anyway, Glenn Beck talked about some of these things as well. And if I find it again, maybe I'll bring it up. We're in an awful situation, ladies and gentlemen. Once the churches start telling their flocks to turn against Trump, that will happen. Historically, scripturally, we've seen it. In the story of Jesus, you see it. The people that were his best friends, Peter, denies him 3 times. And of course, I pointed out that Trump, denied Assange very similarly to the way that Peter denied Jesus. These are principles. They're not necessarily, I'm not saying these people are messiahs or any of that stuff. I'm saying that these are archetypes. These are principles that we see in people that when we see these types of things happening, we should search ourselves and make sure we're not doing the same thing. And we can hold Trump accountable for this hypocritical nonsense. As I told my colleague this morning, my only problem with Trump is that he has no foundational working knowledge of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That is his weakness, because that's really what we wanted him to do. When you boil it all down, that's why we put him in office, and he doesn't know the first thing about it. His red flag law statement was a good example of that, as are some other things. So we need to hold his feet to the fire on those things, but understand that there are legions of false accusations against this man, and he doesn't deserve it. That he is despised and rejected by nearly everybody of any consequence. Yeah, there are exceptions, and I know that. But the powers that be are arrayed against him. Why? Because he represents what we want. He may not be doing it the way we want, but he's there because they know that that's what we want, is that we want these things to get done like I've been talking about. And they see Trump as, if they take him down, they take us down. And I think all of us know that. So I wanted to bring that up this morning. These are very trying times, very dangerous. I still maintain the situation in the Senate is very dangerous, and actually that's the one I wanted to bring up too. Let's see if I kept that one. There was a story, maybe that's the one that I really needed to see, that there is a small number, and I've talked about this to some extent. Mitt Romney is certainly behind some of this, that there is a small group of senators. I didn't save it. Dang it, I get mad when I do that. Somehow that's probably the story I'm looking for. That there's a small group of senators that are totally against Trump, and these are Republicans, rhinos, and that there's a good possibility that these guys meeting, and it might be ladies too, so I don't mean to sound sexist in that regard, that they are meeting to figure out how to turn this next portion of the impeachment and then the trial in the Senate to get rid of Trump. That there is an active movement apparently to do that. And that's something that my Republican insider was very concerned about, and brought it up to me some time ago. And of course, that's obvious. So if in fact, and I have no reason to doubt this, that there is a movement within the Senate to, they're looking like that everything's going to be okay. McConnell might be able to keep it together. He's a pretty powerful guy there. But so are the extortions, the blackmails, those types of things that are being held against these people. So what are they really going to do in the end? Will they turn on Trump? And if they do, then that'll be really bad, because then there will be no hope of ever fixing this. Ray's still in the FBI. Brennan's still running the CIA. I mean, technically he was taken out, but he's actually doing it through his puppet, Gina Haspel. He hasn't relinquished any power there. He still has a security clearance, which was supposed to have been revoked. All these crazy things that are going on. So if they're successful in taking Trump out, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to guess anymore. So this is critical. I am not going to sit here and cheerlead and say that everything's nice and rosy when I know that there are these forces at work underneath the surface that can rear their ugly head at the most inopportune moment for us and reverse the course of this entire thing in 1 minute. All right, I'll go to chat for a few minutes. Oh no, Gigi Gregory said Doug. Whoa, that's not good news. Hold on here, I just lost it. I hate it when it jumps like that. Okay, here. Yeah, so Gigi Gregory is apparently seeing some of this stuff, and Doug Collins apparently said on Fox, Gigi, I lost I'd have to start at the top. Said that we'd have a new president in November. See, this. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be. There is no plan, ladies and gentlemen. There is no plan. There are some real problems here, and we are on our own. Trump did not act in a timely manner. He lost the initiative. He played the political game instead of the salvation game. I'm just going to put it that way. He was supposed to be our champion. No, he tried to shake hands with evil, and you cannot do that. As people are saying, even Dan Bongino now, and others are saying, we should never have tried to shake hands with these people. We are totally, and I've been saying, actually, I was saying that before Dan Bongino was like, I know, you hate to hear it. I said it first. But again, this has been my point all along. You cannot shake hands with the wicked, and that division is a gulf, is a chasm that will never be met together again. We are on separate paths. That is an evil path to take away people's liberties and to defy the perfect law of liberty generally. And that's what the Democrat communists are about. Despite all their words and what they pretend to say, their actions prove otherwise. We can never shake hands with them. And so what are we going to do when they get this power back? Totally. When they finally get it back, totally, what are we going to do? Have you decided what you're going to do? So Gigi, I appreciate you putting that in here. I'm gonna go ahead and run to the top of the and it's not going to go to the top, but because it won't. Something about that chat just won't do that. Oh, Ladybug Nancy. Well, we talked about the weight thing last night. You say I've lost too much. Actually, no, I'm just right. I'm actually just right. Okay. Yeah, I know about Israel being in charge of the chips. They're the cyber kings right now. It's not even China. I know. There are some comments about that. Fact finder, the military is in check. 6 secured. Huh? Fact finder, what are you talking about? You think our 6 is secured because the military is in check? You really think that? No, that's not true at all. I'm sorry. That's not true at all. Are you talking about the people are going to be able to put the military in check? I've told you, be careful with that one. Man, be careful with that one. Hey, Hal, I like what you're saying. If a person accepts this office, they need to be prepared. Seems like he passes the important things to his son-in-law, like immigration, Middle East peace plan. Say we're at a risk of losing everything. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. He was sucked into playing the political game instead of the restoration of the republic game. Now, I realize there has to be a pragmatic approach to this somewhat. Okay, I understand that. But not taking out the enemies of the people as quickly as possible within the first year or two was a big mistake. Big mistake, because that gave them, as I've said all along, that gave them reason to go ahead and keep doing what they're doing and to get worse. Oh, come on. Tony Barbera, you know what? We've had these arguments before, okay? I know there are problems with the Israel pact. I know that. I know there's problems with Israel, okay? But there are problems with other countries as well. I know that I've said before, I don't like it, the fact that you have to make accusations like this. Okay, I should just get angry, but frankly, I just get irritated and just get tired of it. I have said that dual citizenship should be verboten of any elected official or bureaucrat who works for the government. I've said that. Dual citizenship is not a good, I don't care if it's Israeli American, I don't care if it's Canadian American, I don't care if it's British, I don't care. Dual citizenship should be should prohibit you from holding any kind of an office, okay? We have problems not just with Israel. There are a lot of other things. I know look, I don't like the fact that Trump seems to be more concerned about Israel than he does about America. But that's the problem, because they try to always link the two. And your Christians did that, right? A lot of the Christians are responsible for this nonsense. But anyway, I don't want to go there today. We get into that so much. I just, I'm not going to go there, Tony. Just saying that much, okay? I just want to see if anybody's going to comment about either of these two articles to any degree. Assange is coming out now, Zavuya. I'm not sure what you mean. You mean he's starting to talk more? Is that what you're saying? I haven't seen that today. I know that doctors are saying if he doesn't get taken care of here soon, he'll die. I know there are 100 doctors that are concerned about him. Trump abandoned him, totally abandoned him. Trump totally abandoned Flynn over a lie by Vice President Pence and a setup by the FBI. Trump totally abandoned Roger Stone. And Trump, apparently, because he's not giving policy direction to Barr, or maybe he is, that's contrary to what he says publicly, has turned his back on ranchers and people out west who have tried to stand against Hillary Clinton and Harry Reid and their abuse of power through the DOJ, FBI, BLM, etc. And of course, I'm talking about the Bundys. This is outrageous. And I've called this out before. And these are problems that I do find disturbing. If he has the power and he's afraid to use it, I'm sorry, that's cowardly. Especially when lives and things are at stake. And I can see why you're saying what you're saying, Mike Guyver. Trump is acting like a total deceiver. And I've been around those places before. And if it's not by a plan, it's because he doesn't have a gut moral base understanding of the Constitution, which has been my problem with him from the beginning. Because I thought, according to his interview with Alex Jones, that he did have such an understanding, but he does not. And that is very disturbing. Yeah, Tony Barbera, I know about the USS Liberty. Okay, I know about all these things. And I know things about the Israelis. I've worked with... you don't have to preach to me, I know. And it is a problem. But so are the British. Look at what we saw in the Trump-Russia thing. Look at the British and what MI6 did. Look at the Australians. there's more to this thing. It's a conglomerate of secret societies, and they span many different organizations, nationalities, all sorts of things. It really is a huge Luciferian cabal. So don't hone in on just one thing, because then you miss the big picture. I had a special forces guy that worked for me when I was in the Army, and I knew him afterwards. And he hated Israelis. You know, I'm serious. We had to keep him from slitting their throats. He hated them. He hated them. So yeah, I'm just saying. You know, I know all about that. Jane Swinford, Horowitz, Barr, and Durham are working to save the institutions and will slap a few hands in the end. Rehab for all. Yeah, and that's the way it's looking right now. Yeah, they're talking about procedures. You know, the FISA court, Collier, who knew about this stuff 2 years ago, we can prove, and was probably actually in on the whole thing from the beginning, the conspiracy, is saying, oh, now tell me, FBI and DOJ, what procedures are you going to institute to fix these? Baloney. No, there need to be people held in contempt, people held criminally for false statements, all sorts of things. Yeah, and I'm afraid you're right. And again, I hope Rich Higgins doesn't mind me invoking his words to me on a text the other day. He had seen one of my videos and basically said, well, I agree with you mostly what you say, but Trump you know, is having, he is surrounded by these things, and it is a difficulty. And he says, unfortunately, personnel equals policy. Do you understand that? Personnel equals policy. So in other words, if I believe that, for instance, that we should spend $100, okay, and that's the goal that we're going to do, and I bring people in who don't do that, who believe that we should not spend $100, but that we should give $100 to, say, Joe across the street. That's what's going to happen, because personnel equals policy. The people that you bring in are the people that mirror the true policy of what's going on, okay? So if you don't bring the right people in, you're not going to get the right policy. And that, as everyone knows, was a big mistake that Trump made up front. So, yeah, I agree, Jane. I'm worried that things are not going to work out the way we had hoped. I'm not saying that all is lost yet, but there are definitely some bad-looking signs. Okay, we've been going for an hour. Fact Finder, I like that. We may not end up with Trump. We may end up with Trump or not in the end. He's just a man. What matters is, do we retain our soul? In other words, do we do the right thing? Yeah, and I agree. I agree. But this is dangerous. You know, Trump should never have done this to us. At least with Clinton, we would have known where we stood. With what he has done, and I realize, you know, putting China on the back burner, you know, interfering with their doing his economic warfare is a good thing. I'm not saying it isn't. It is. But he should have done that and not left the other undone. Because now we're seeing that his inaction on those other things has now put us all in a very, very bad situation. And the economic thing, could, like I said, will be turned around in 1 minute as soon as they get rid of him. Okay. I'd love to go through all of this, but, you know, I don't want to go along too long today, and it's been just a little under an hour. I'm going to speed down through here and see if there's anything that just really, and I'd love to answer all your questions, but well, we could go at this all day, right? So let me just go down through and see if there's anything that Yeah, I think that's come out. Lisa Edelson James says Lisa Page was passed around by a whole division of the FBI. There, I don't know if you remember Austin Powers, but you know he meets that lady in the hot tub, and you know he breaks wind, and she says, "How dare you break wind before me?" And he says, "I didn't know you had to," or something like that. It's that same movie, and he talks about her, and he says, "Well, you know, she's the community bicycle. Everybody's taking a ride." I think that's what you're saying, and on that, I think I'll close down. Okay, we got to have a little levity, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to do that, but I am worried. I see some really obviously. I'm not a cheerleader. I see some very dangerous things. There is no plan. It's going quite counter to anything that looks like that this could turn around. Barr and Durham are waiting too long, which really means Trump waited too long. And if in fact there is a group in the Senate, and I know there is, I know Mitt Romney, I don't know him personally, but I know where he comes from and I know what he is, and he's a snake. And he's going to find those other rhinos. Paul Ryan is back behind the scenes here somewhere doing this as well. There is some nefarious activity going on between the Supreme Court, the Democratic Communist Party, and rhinos like Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney. And it might be that Mitch McConnell can't keep, just like supposedly Nancy couldn't keep a hold on her radical left, group, a gang of four, or whatever the heck they're called. Whether that was for show or not, I don't know. But the fact is, McConnell may not be able to hold this thing together in the Senate. There are very powerful forces at work, and Trump should have taken these people out within the first year to year and a half. So we're in trouble. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for coming. Again, if something occurs, I'll come up and give you an impromptu, but I thought that information was pretty important this morning. Again, I'd love to go through the chat and talk with each and every one of you, answer each question, address it at least. I don't always answer them. But time is, a commodity, and so it's time to sign off. Thanks for coming, everybody. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. God bless the sheriffs and the counties around the country that are standing up against the assaults on the Second Amendment and the First, etc. That's good. That's a good sign. But it's bad in that our country is being torn apart. It really is being torn apart, as I talked about the other day. We are being balkanized, divided, and that's necessary, I'm afraid, at this point. There is no other way. The truth is a two-edged sword to the dividing asunder, right? And unfortunately, I don't like the fact that we have to have a right versus wrong, evil versus good dichotomy, but that's just the fact of the matter. There are people who will philosophically try to say that that's the wrong way to look at things. No, it isn't. We have to call evil what it is. And if it's just as I forget who I mentioned said this the other day, but that it's when evil is when stupidity rises, and there's some truth to that, but that doesn't mean that we can accept it as just an alternative point of view. No, we can't do that. There are absolute truths, and to deny that is to deny what and who we are. Okay, enough philosophizing for the day. Stand fast. Keep your eyes peeled. And realize that we don't have too many friends left at those levels. Till next time, thanks.